get. Hello and welcome to another segment of DSU Inside Perspective. This is the show where we talk with faculty, staff, students, and guests or alumni about some of the things that are going on in the world or some of the great things that are going on at Delaware State University. You know what? I grew up learning about the Underground Railroad, and like a lot of people, we heard the stories of Harriet Tubman and how she got blacks out of their, slavery in the South and brought them up north. But, I never really remember hearing much about the end story. Well, today we have Dr. Cami Fletcher, who is an assistant professor of history, political science, and philosophy here at Delaware State University. And she recently took a trip with some students up to Canada, which is the end story for a lot of African Americans, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to my show today.
Thank you.
Tell us about that. You took them up this summer?
Yeah, I did. This is actually the second trip. The first one we went to Toronto and Niagara Falls. And we traced the black loyalists this time. So these are the blacks that fought on behalf of the American Revolution. So think late 1700s. And so didn't win. We are now patriots. And so what do we do with these loyalists? So these blacks were literally shipped off to Nova Scotia. Yeah, and we learned about the communities that they built. Went out to a lot of heritage sites. Yeah, it was really, really interesting for my students to know the first part about blacks fighting in the American Revolution and then the communities they built up there.
So after they moved to Canada, all was well?
That's never the story. That's never the story of black freedom here. They got plots of land, discrimination. Some people say followed them. Some people say discrimination was already there, because it's never racism if you do not have blacks there. But they made the most of a good situation. Yeah, and it's starting communities such as Africville.
Mm-hmm. Now, you took a group of how many students up?
This year, it was a total of 16, including myself. Yeah.
And you've got another trip coming up this coming summer?
I do, yes. We're going back to Nova Scotia to continue to learn about that, a different group of students. And we're also going to Iceland. That surprises a lot of folks.
I'm surprised.
That the African diaspora extends to Iceland. Yeah, there are black folks there. There's a current migration of blacks going to Iceland from Africa, also from the U.S. It's a big tourist attraction to blacks looking for love, getting married there. But it also has a history. I hope to connect with a professor there that has talked about the prevailing kind of presence of African culture on Nordic culture. So a lot of this mixture of Viking culture and Norse mythology, how it was influenced by African mythology and culture as well. Yeah.
So how did these black, I remember reading somewhere that this trip was going to Iceland, but it just didn't register with me.
Yes.
Black history.
Yes.
So how did they get there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, now there's a big push, so people are flying and
No, but the original group of blacks, how did they get there?
Well, not necessarily an original group of blacks traveling to Iceland by boat and seafaring. That's the first answer to this. A lot of people don't realize that other than the slave trade, there were actually African seafarers that traveled. There's even theories that say that there were Africans here before Columbus and these types of things, before the Mayflower, if you're familiar with that book. But more so what I'm talking about is scholars, or this one particular scholar now talking about the influence of African culture on Viking culture. So making these connections. So looking at the African diaspora and everything that black folks have done, how that's influenced Iceland, of all places.
Well, you're doing a good job selling this trip right now. I almost want to see, maybe, what am I doing next year? Let me see if I can make this trip. Well, if someone is interested in going on this trip, what should they do?
They can email me. You can email me at kfletcher, So that's KFLETCHER@desu.edu.
Okay. And you're taking the trip about what time are you, when are you?
Oh, right. We leave July 17th, and we'll
July
be back
17th.
on July 27th. So it's a good 11 days.
So within the next few months, they need to get a hold of you and make
Yes,
some
please do.
arrangements.
Get the
Okay.
deposit in. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, Cami, thank you so much for being on my
Thank
show
you.
today, and just continue doing what you're doing, you know, because we know history, Black history extends far beyond the borders of the United
Yes,
States.
absolutely.
And thank you for watching another segment of DSU Inside Perspective. Have a good day.